Alright, we're going to be going over the question 1 from the 2015 free response questions for the AP Computer Science test. So the first question deals with, as it says, 1 and 2 dimensional arrays of integers. So it asks you to write 3 methods for this diverse array class. The first of which is just a sum, and then the second of which sums up all the rows, and the third of which returns a Boolean value regarding whether or not the array is what they call diverse, which we'll get to in a second. So the class is fairly straightforward. It just involves 3 different static methods. You don't have to do all this class stuff, but I'll do it here, obviously. So the first one is just public static int. So it's going to return an integer, and we're told it's a static method, and it's going to be called ArraySum, and it's going to take in a one-dimensional array of integers. This is almost as simple as a method regarding arrays, or a question regarding arrays can get. So again, we start with the return type, and we say, okay, we need to return an int, so let's create one, and we're going to call it sum, because that is the goal of our method, is to return a sum. Then you simply have to iterate over the array that's passed over as a parameter. So for int I equals 0, I is less than array.length, I plus plus, and we have to look at each element in the array, and we simply have to add it to the sum. And then at the end of the method, just return sum. And that is it for why is this angry at me right here? Oh yeah, it wants me to set this to 0, right? Of course. Sorry, oversight. That is the entire method for that one. The second part asks you to return, given a 2-dimensional array, it wants you to return an array that represents the sum of each row. And this is, again, fairly straightforward. Now that we have this array sum method, we know how to sum a row, or a one-dimensional array. So we can just use that method in combination with a loop to sum up all the rows and put them in an array of integers instead of just an integer this time. So this is a public static method that returns an array of integers, and it's called row sums. And it takes in a 2-dimensional array of integers, array2d, and since we know we need to return an array of integers, we start there and we create a new one, array, and we're going to call this sums because it represents, you know, like the first element in this array will represent the sum of the first row in the 2-dimensional array. So we'll say this sums. We're set it to a new int array of the appropriate size, which is, in this case, the length of a row. Oops, array2d.length, sorry. So that's now the correct size. So we have an array of integers called sums that is the correct length. It has a number of indices, or a number of elements equal to the number of rows in the array passed over. And at the end of our method, we just want to return sums. But what do we do in the middle? Well, we need to do almost exactly the same thing as we did in the previous method. For int I, we need to look at each row. So int I equals 0, I is less than array2d.length, I plus plus. And in this case, we are going to send our array sum method each row. So, and it will return the sum. So sums at I is equal to the result of this method for each row. So array sum array2d, and we send it array2d I, because you can chop off each row, each of the first elements of the array can be kind of removed in this fashion. And that is the sum total of this method. The next method is a little bit more involved, so I'll pause now and we'll start that in the next video.